Okay, yeah, hi all. Welcome to this webinar that is persistence in Zoom via hijacking and bypassing Zoom anti-tampering library. So this is a very interesting webinar where we are talking about the technical stuff that we identified, and we have recently used these kind of stuff in our engagements as well as in various assessments. So this works pretty much seamless and very helpful during initial access operations. So yeah, we will have a very deep dive into these kind of techniques, and yeah, we will explore the stuff. So this will be a very technical session where we will first showcase how the uh, flow, how the kill chain looks like for this specific TTP. Then we will talk about the internals, like what all things has been leveraged or the techniques that has been used for this thing to get through. Now, right after that, we will proceed with a demonstration, like how and what all things we can do to basically further perform these operations. So everything will be discussed in line. So today's webinar presenter is John Sherchan. So he is our Red Team security researcher, and he has been constantly working on these topics, where he specializes in reverse engineering and malware analysis as well as Windows internal stuff. So he has a very good knowledge in this particular domain. So okay, thank you all for joining this stuff, and we will be uploading the webinar recording in the YouTube. So feel free to have a look into that, and within 24 hours the link will be ready and it will be uploaded in the YouTube, so you guys can view all the things in there. And yeah, so that's pretty much all of it. Enjoy the webinar, and feel free to let us know if there is anything that you don't understand. And for the questions, there is a chat box, if you can see in the right section. So feel free to drop your questions in here. You can directly ask John, as well as you can broadcast to all audience as well. So whatever you require, feel free to do that. So the things are in the chat box, in the description. So please ask your questions there. And yeah, so without wasting any time, I will hand over the stage to John. So yeah, John, I'm just making a presenter. Please proceed. Yeah, John. So you are now the presenter. Can you please speak?
Yeah, am I audible? Hello?
Yeah, it's quite low, John. Can you please
Okay.
yeah, adjust mic?
Now is it good?
Still, I think John, it's quite low.
Okay, let me. Okay, just a minute. Is it good now?
Yeah, it's better now. Yeah, John. Yes, yes.
Okay, let me increase a little bit. Now is it better?
Yeah, it's very good. Yeah, John. So yeah, I think you can proceed now, John. Yeah,
So my screen is also visible, right?
yeah, John. Screen is visible,
Okay.
and you are audible. Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, sir. And also thank you everyone for joining this webinar. So today we are going to briefly look into the DLL hijacking. I think most of you are already familiar with the DLL hijacking technique, but today we are going to perform the DLL hijacking in the Zoom application. And Zoom application has its own way of preventing the DLL hijacking or DLL side loading technique. And also we have our own way to bypass this anti-tampering feature of the Zoom Zoom application, which we are going to demonstrate in today's session. So without wasting any time, so let's look into the contents. So today we are going to cover these contents. So first we will briefly discuss on the kill chain and what is DLL, and we will also look into the basic term of the DLL hijacking. Then we will also briefly look into the DLL proxying, and this is the main part of this webinar, which is the bypassing Zoom anti-tampering library. So we will briefly look into the Zoom tampering library, as well as we will also discuss and demonstrate how we can bypass this anti-tampering feature of the Zoom application. So here is a basic kill chain. So first we will have the ISO here, and the ISO will contain the macro document. And macro document, whenever user clicks this document, it is going to auto open and download the traffic DLL from the payload server. And this traffic DLL is the malicious DLL, and it is disguised as the legitimate DLL name, and it will be dropped into the Zoom application location. And whenever user clicks this Zoom application, whenever user opens this Zoom application, it is going to load our it is going to side load our malicious DLL, and certainly it is also going to bypass the defense. But here is the thing: if you are it depends on the payload that you are using. If you are using, let's say, the raw version of the metadata cell, then it is definitely going to detect you, even if you have sideload the DLL into the Zoom application. So it depends on how evasive your payload is as well. But our DLL is already loaded into the signed binary, so there is a high chance that it is going to bypass most of the defenses. And from there, it will once the DLL is sideload, it will again going to connect to the C2 server. So this is the kill chain that we are going to follow. But we are not going to discuss all of this, but we are going to only discuss this part. However, we are going to demonstrate all of these skills in our lab. So let's just discuss about the DLL. So DLL is a main component of the Windows operating system, and it is a shared library. It exposes some functions or some code to the other application, so that other application can use that functions or code. The developers do not need to go and create that functionality from scratch. So this is the main component of the Windows operating system, and DLLs has been extensively used in Windows operating system by many system components and applications in Windows operating system. And if you are already familiar with the Windows operating system, you know that whenever you go to the application directory, you will see there a bunch of DLLs there in the application directory, and whenever you open some applications, it is also going to load that particular DLL into its address space. And yeah, and it is going to use some of the code from that DLL. And we will also see what the if you just go to the PE parser, and if you just go and look into the export table, you will going to identify what functions are exposed by that particular DLL. And whenever you load that DLL, you can you can just use that particular functions from that DLL. So we will also see that in the PE parser later. And so here is the main topic, that is the DLL hijacking. So it is a technique in which attacker replaces the legitimate DLL with the malicious one, which allows us to which will trick the application into loading the malicious DLL instead of the legitimate one. So it is very trivial to hijack the missing DLLs. So let's say you downloaded application, and that application just popped the message saying that AVC DLL is missing. So in that case, what you can do is you can simply go and place the DLL into the same location where it is searching for that particular DLL with the same specific DLL name. You can place your malicious DLL there. and next time whenever you execute your program, it is going to load that particular malicious DLL. But here is one thing to take a note here. So whenever some application is trying to use the DLL, whenever the application is loading the DLL into its address space, then it certainly want to use the some functionality from that DLL. That means if our malicious DLL could not be able to provide that functionality or the code to the application, then it is definitely going to break the application. So attackers has also some technique to circumvent this issue, which we will discuss later. But yeah, when malicious code is loaded into the address space of that particular application, that means the malicious code will run as the same context as the process. That means if the process is running as the administrator privilege, then our malicious code will run as the run with the administrator privilege. And if the process that loaded the DLL is loaded the malicious DLL is running as the system level privilege, then our malicious code will also load as the system level privilege. So that this technique can also be used sometimes for privilege escalations, but most of the time it is used for the stealthier and persistent purpose. So this is just a core concept. You can say this as the parent technique, but this technique has its own specific version. One is the DLL source order hijacking, and another famous one is DLL side loading. Before understanding the DLL side loading, we need to understand the DLL source order hijacking first. So in the DLL source error hijacking, what it does is the attacker hijacks the DLL source order mechanism of the Windows operating system. So whenever so there is a there is specifically or mostly two way that the application will identify that it needs to load that particular DLL. So let's say whenever you call some of the function from the kernel32.dll, then the linker will add the specific DLL in the import table, and from the import table the application will identify that we need to load that particular DLL, and from that particular DLL we are trying to use that function. That's the one way to do that. And another way of loading the DLL is using the load library API. The load library API. So if we, when we call the load library API, and if we give the DLL name there, it is going to look for the DLL in a predefined directories in a specific search order. So it will go and look for into all of those predefined directories in a specific source order, and wherever it finds the DLL, it is going to load the DLL from that particular directory. So this is how the source order goes. So from the application directory to the directory path in the environment variable, it goes from top to bottom. So the in this case, what attacker does is they just try to hijack one of these directory from here whenever the load library is called. So let's say load library is called without the specific DLL path, then it is going to first look at the DLL at the application directory. So let's say the Zoom is going to load the abc.dll, then first it will go to the application directory where Zoom is installed, and it will look at the abc.dll. Let's say the abc.dll is in the Windows directory. So the Zoom will go and look for the abc.dll in this application directory, and if it does not find the DLL there, it will go and look for the DLL in the system32. And even after that, if it doesn't find the DLL, it will go and look for the DLL into the system directory. And only after that, if it doesn't find the DLL there, it will go and look for the DLL here. Once it finds the DLL into this C Windows directory, it is going to load the DLL from here. So in the DLL search or hijacking technique, what attacker does is attacker try to hijack any of these directory, which is the in the source order. So if the attacker is able to hijack any of these three directory, which is above the C windows. So let's not talk about the privilege level here. So let's just forget about the privilege level here. So let's just assume that uh, attacker can, let's say, hijack any of this directory. Let's just forget about the privilege and all of that thing, and let's just assume that abc.dll is in this C windows directory. So in that case, if the attacker places the malicious DLL into the system directory here, so what happens is that it will go and look for the DLLs into this directory, and it will go and look for the DLL into this directory. And on the original, let's just assume that original ABC DLL is into the C Windows directory. But if attacker places the DLL above the source order directory, so the source order always goes from top to bottom. So whenever the attacker places the DLL in any of the location above this particular directory, then the application is going to load that particular DLL. So if the attacker places the DLL right above this source path, in here in the system directory, if the attacker places the malicious DLL with the same DLL name in this path, then it is going to load the malicious DLL. It is never going to go and look for the original DLL once the DLL get loaded from here. So this is how the attackers are able to hijack um, hijack the DLL. But in modern operating system, writing into this location with the normal user with the normal user, it's almost impossible, because we will not have any writable permission there. We need to have at least admin privilege. We must have at least admin privilege to write into this directory. Okay, so in the this is the actually this is the safe DLL source order. So in the traditional DLL source order, the current directory comes after the application directory, and only after the system32 system and Windows directory comes. But in this particular, this is the safe DLL source order. The current directory comes after the Windows path here. Now I think we have understand the DLL source order hijacking, that if the attacker is able to place the DLL right above the source order. Let's say if the DLL is here, if the attacker is able to place the DLL in any of this location above this directory source path, then the application is going to load that DLL from one of these locations where the malicious DLL is placed. So this is how the attacker hijacks the DLL. Now, previously we also talk about that whenever the application loads the DLL, it wants some functionality or code to be used from that DLL. The application wants to use some code from that DLL. That's why it is loading the DLL. So to maintain the integrity of the original DLL, the attacker also used the DLL proxying technique with the combination of the DLL source order or DLL side loading technique. So in the DLL proxying technique, what they use is they use the concept called the DLL wrapper. So this concept is also used in a legitimate way. So let's say a developer wants to upgrade the application, and at the same time they want to add some functionality in one of their DLL. But whenever they upgrade their application, they also want the old version of the application to be able to use that DLL. For the compatibility reason, what they do is they want to add the functionality in the particular DLL, but they also do not want to modify anything in the DLL. So in that case, what they do is they will create a wrapper DLL. That wrapper DLL, in that wrapper DLL, they will add the functionality that they need to be, they wants to add in there, and the wrapper DLL will work as a proxy there. So whenever the application calls some function there, whenever the application wants to call some function, the DLL wrapper will intercept the call that is made by the application, and then it will perform the additional feature that is added in that DLL wrapper, and then it will forward the call to the original DLL. So likewise, the attacker also uses this concept. So the DLL wrapper, this will be the malicious DLL, and here they will also forward the call to the original DLL. So in this way, they will also maintain the integrity and legitimacy and the functionality of that particular application. So this is how it looks like. So this image is also from the Chainsaw, and this is really a great graphic. So let's say this is our Zoom application and we want to load the traffic DLL. And in our kill chain, if you remember, we dropped the malicious traffic.dll, and we, along with the traffic DLL, we also dropped the legitimate DLL here. And by hijacking the source order, we just placed we were able to write in the application directory, so we directly dropped the traffic.dll into the application directory, and we also dropped the original tra fic, which is renamed as the single f here. So this is the original DLL file. We also dropped the original DLL into the same directory, and we have the traffic.dll. So the Zoom will load the traffic.dll, which is the malicious one, and the traffic.dll is going to load the original traffic.dll. So whenever the Zoom makes call to the function A, uh, so it will go, the traffic.dll is going to intercept the call. Like we mentioned, the DLL wrapper concept, it is going to intercept the call to the function A, and then after that, if it needs to perform any additional functionality here, it will perform the additional functionality. Otherwise, it will simply going to forward the call to the original DLL, and original DLL will maintain its functionality. So in this way, the application will never break, and also the malware code will be executing from here. So so now, before talking about the Zoom's anti-tampering library, let's just go to the lab and perform the DLL proxying or hijacking, and after that, let's discuss about the Zoom anti-tampering library. So here we have the lab, and this is the DLL wrapper function, and in the exports we are adding the linker here. So here we are saying that if there is a call to this, so whenever, let's say, if the Zoom loads this DLL, so in the export table we are saying that if the Zoom is calling the TC add filter for this traffic.dll, it will forward the call to the traffic.tc add filter. So here the traffic is the legitimate DLL. So we can simply create this DLL using this tool called PEX. I think let me just go over here using this PE exports in. So what we do is we will just open the command here, and we can do it manually, but the traffic.dll, so like we mentioned here, This is the original traffic.dll. Just we have renamed this as the single f. And in the export directory, here you can see these are the functions that is exposed by this particular DLL. So we want these functions to be linked in the wrapper DLL, because if we create a malicious DLL and if we want to give the each and every functionality, we cannot create each and every we cannot write each and every functions from scratch. It's almost impossible. So what we do is we will just tell the wrapper DLL to forward the call to one of these particular function from in this traffic.dll. So to do that, we need to include this particular format, the export file. So to do that, we need to we need to either write this manually, or we can have this tool pe export gen. I think it's from the Soul as well. So what we do is we will just open the command here, and with the pe export gen, with this directory, we will just give the name of this DLL, traffic.dll. And in the export ads, we are going to get the same format of this linker. So what we need to do now is, so it is going to forward this to the traffic underscore oris dot traffic the tc add filter. So we are going to replace this traffic dot ors original with the single traffic dot dl, and we are going to place this in this export file, and we are going to include the export file in here. We are going to include the export file here. So after that, we are going to build this application. So before that, what we will do is we will just comment this bypass anti-tampering. So let's just not talk about the anti-tampering first. So let's just build this binary without any anti-tampering bypass. So we will just copy this DLL from here, and this is just going to give a simple shell back to the netcat. So we will look at this later as well. First, let's just copy and remove this traffic.dll. So this is the original traffic.dll, and here we are going to paste the. We are just going to drop this malicious. So this one is the malicious. This is a wrapper DLL, and we are going to open this server here. Okay. So here we have opened the server to this port. Now let's just go to the Zoom application directory. And let's just look at the traffic DLL, and at this point you can see there is no traffic DLL. It's only tp.dll and turbo jpeg.dll. Now let's just go to the local data, and let's find that if there is any cached DLL here. So there is the DLL. Okay, so let's just try to delete this. Okay, no DLLs are cached in this in here. So what we do is, let's just open this folder here. This is the Zoom application folder. Now we will go to the ISO file. So this is how our kill chain is. So here is the ISO file. So we will just open the ISO file here, and we have the still ops.docm. So this is the macro file, and just look at here, there is no traffic.dll right now. Let me just refresh this. Now let's just try to execute this. And if you look at here, the traffic.dll and traffic.dll is downloaded from the server. And let's just confirm this. Here you can see both of the DLL are downloaded from here, and we have the traffic.dll here. Now what we do is we are just going to open the port. It's 4443, I think. And let's just try to open the zoom here. So when we open the zoom will identify that this traffic.dll is not legitimate one. So let's just open this, and you can see it's saying that zoom.exe is using traffic.dll from unknown publisher, and it's also asking us whether to run the software or not. So at this point, I think we have the cell. So this means that we can confirm that even so the DLL is loaded and executed before the anti-tampering feature. You can see here. So our cell core, sorry, we are still getting the reverse cell back here. If I do QMI, you can see it's the still ups, and after loading the our traffic.dll and executing our malicious code, it is going to go and figure out whether the DLL is known from the known publisher or not. So if we just click yes button, it is going to open the zoom. If we hit the no button, it is going to exit the zoom. So this is the protection feature that is added by the zoom. So if we just click on yes, so this message will keeps appearing time to time. You can see it is so it is continuously appearing here. It's the message is continuously popping up in the screen. So now we will try to bypass this. Okay, let's just see here again. You can see the message keeps popping. So this so whenever you see this kind of thing, it will you will get suspicious about this, right? Because if you see this message, you will certainly going to understand that something is wrong happening with the zoom. So you will definitely going to close this application. And so we need to bypass this stuff so that we can make it really stealthier. So to do that, let's just go to the zoom and just close this connection. And yeah, I think we are we exit from here. So now let's just talk about the anti-tampering library here. So this is the code snippet taken from the IDA. So this is how anti-tampering library checks the DLL. So what it does is like it will go and check the path, and if the DLL is loaded from this directory, it is going to return 1. That means it will going to enter into this function, and here it will just pass the DLL here, and then it will the base of the DLL here, and it will try to verify that DLL. So previously in the Zoom has its separate library called DLL safecheck.dll library. But in the latest version of the Zoom application, that library is completely removed, and this anti-tampering feature is embedded into the Zoom executable itself. So let's just go to this anti-tampering feature. Let's just identify there in the IDA. So we need to reverse this, but we have already reversed and identify the anti-tampering feature here. I think it's already open. Yeah, so here's a quick tip to identify the anti-tampering library. Just go to the source, just go over here and hit Control F, and then look for the enum process, and just double click here and hit X button here and just click here. So we have already renamed this function here. So this is the anti-tampering feature of this Zoom application, which is embedded in the Zoom executable itself. But previously it was in the DLL SafeCheck DLL library, but that library is completely removed in the latest version of the Zoom, and this is embedded in the Zoom binary itself. So first it will look for all the modules that is loaded in the process, and then after that it will go into the loop, and from each module it is going to calculate the file path, file name length, and then this is the full file name length, and it is going to pass the file name length here, and inside this function it is going to call this function. So this is the important one. It is going to call this function. So this function is called multiple times. To be precise, it's been called 3 times. So first it will call this function and it will check whether the DLL, so DLL file, so it will not compare the file path, uh, but what it does is first it will from here it will calculate the full path of the DLL, and it will pass here. So let's say the our graphic.dll is loaded from the app data, and Zoom, we know it's being loaded from the Zoom bin, and then .dll. Let's say the path is the the length of this path is, let's say, 55. And here it is what it does is it will first calculate the path length of this Zoom bin, that is app data percentage Zoom bin. So let's say the so we need it's just a shortcut, but it's expanded in here. So we need to subtract this. So let's just say it's the 46. Okay, so let's just say the length of this app data Zoom bin is 46, and what it does is it will check whether the full path of this DLL is greater than this Zoom bin or not. If it is greater than this Zoom bin, length of this Zoom bin, then it is confirmed that this traffic.dll is loaded from the Zoom bin. And if it is if this value is greater than this value 46 in here, so this will return 1, and once it returns 1 it will call this function, and this function will check uh, the DLL signatures and all, and from here our that message is getting popped up. Now let's say this is not from the bin, right? So the next time what it does is it will go over here and call the same function again, and this time it will say app data and Zoom. So the next location that it sorts is app data and then Zoom. So this location, let's say this location is 43. So if this is great, if this the file length of this traffic.dll away from where it is loaded is let's say it's a 55. If it is greater than this Zoom, then it will also detect that the DLL is loaded from this directory, and in that case it will just go to the label 22, and from here again you can see it will go and check the DLL whether it is verified or not. But let's say let's just assume that the DLL traffic.dll is loaded from the system32 directory, and in that case the system32 directory, this is it's a system32 and traffic.dll, And in this case, let's say this is the length of this path is the let's say 20 35. Now in this case, if the traffic is loaded from the system 32, the length of the traffic, the DLL will be 35. And in that case, it will in this function it will check whether the this 35 is greater than this value. First, it will not be greater, so it will return 0. If it returns 0, it will never going to enter here. It's going to continue execution from here, and after that again it will go and call this function, and again the same thing, it is going to check whether the 35 is greater than 43, and again it will return false. So it will never going to go to the level 22, but it will go to level 28. So from level 28, what it does is it will again call this function, and here it will check whether the DLL is whether this length is greater than the um, this 35. So what it does is, so again it will check. Let's say this is the Windows directory. So this Windows directory is, let's say, 1 2 3 4. Let's say this is the 11 or 12. So now what it does is it will check whether this 35 is greater than 12 or not, right? So if it is greater, it is going to return true. That means here it will return 1 because it is always greater than this Windows path, which is 35, so it is always greater. So this time it will not enter here because not 1 means 0, and it will never enter this loop. Then it will just go to the level 43, which will take us to here, and if you look at here, it is just going to return from this function. So our DLL will never get checked for this one. So that means if the DLL is inside this Windows or System 32 folder, our DLL is never going to get checked. But if the DLL is inside this Zoom bin or Zoom folder, the DLL will get checked, and we will get that message box saying that it is from the unknown publisher. So during the assessment, we come up with the two bypass. So one is that here you can see this function will only return 1 and 0. So we can make this always return. We can pass this and make this always return 0, and here always return 0 and always return 1. Or we can simply pass this function and make the EAX always move to 1 or something like that. And that was working completely fine. But the issue with the patching, so here why we were able to pass this function is that, like you noticed earlier, the anti-tampering library gets this functionality gets executed later, but the malicious code will always run first, and only after the anti-tampering library runs. So in this case, we can do whatever we want to do in the malicious DLL before the anti-tampering library executes. So from there we can pass these particular functions in memory, but the thing is that it is not reliable because in the last version of the Zoom, there was these codes were implemented in the DLL SafeCheck library, but this time these codes are moved into the zoom.exe. So we need to like keep track of the each and every Zoom version, and we need to maintain the offsets to pass this particular thing in the memory, and this is not reliable. The technique was not reliable, so that's why we didn't use that technique. So now here I want all of you to uh, like listen this carefully, because this one is our own technique to bypass this particular library, and we have been delivering this technique in our stealth ops training for a very long period of time. Now finally we are going to reveal this technique publicly in this webinar. So here we have, so first of all, let's identify what we have in the upper hand. So first thing is our malicious code. Our malicious code always gets executed first, right? So that means we can do anything we want to do before the anti-tampering library. And second thing is we know that if we place the DLL into this directory, it is going to go and check this DLL whether it is verified or not, right? So we cannot place this directory DLL into this directory, but the thing is we cannot also place the DLL into the Windows and System32 directory, because those are the privilege folder and we need at least administrative privilege to write the DLL there. So, and the only part that we are able to hijack here is this app data zoom bin, which is the application directory itself. So now what we can do is all the informations that are getting passed into this function is from this particular function. So what it does is it will just go and enumerate all the modules information, and then here it is doing the work after that. So what we can do is we will simply tamper with the output for the enum process module. So in that case, we need to understand how enum process module works. So if we able to tamper the output, because this anti-tampering library executes after our malicious code. That means we can tamper with the output for the enum process models. So what we first we need to understand how this enum process module works. So we are not going into the details, but we will briefly explain about this enum process model. So what enum process model does is it will go and parse the PABE of that particular modules, and from here it is going to look into the PABE loader data structure. So this is how enum process model works. It is going to first it will identify the PABE, and then it will go and identify the PABE loader data, and here you will identify the list entries, which is a doubly linked list, and into these three lists all of the modules that are currently loading in this process is maintained here. And if you look at the list entry, this is just the forward link and the backward link, but each entry, so let's say the forward link is the forward a module, the next module, let's say. So each modules here where it is pointing at is a loader data table entry. So let's just go again, the Versilius. So each entries there is the loader data table entry. So enum process is going to go over this linked list, and it will parse each and every DLLs that are currently loaded in this particular process, and from this loader data table entry structure it is going to get the informations. So if we are able to tamper with the full DLL name, so here it is calculating the file name here. So if we so we cannot replace our DLL in the Windows or System32 folder, but we can replace the DLL name here. So instead of placing the DLL into the system or Windows directory, we can simply replace the DLL path here. So let's say DLL path is the zoom bin traffic.dll. We can simply replace that with the C Windows system32.dll. So let's just go over here to the slide, and so this is the message that we are getting. So in here, if you look at here, first we are going to the loader, and inside the PABE loader data. So this is what we are doing, similar to the enum process module. We are just enumerating all the process modules in the all the loaded process modules, and we are going to identify the traffic.dll. And whenever we identify the traffic.dll, we are simply going to replace this path. Instead of the app data roaming zoom being traffic.dll, we are simply going to replace this path with the C Windows traffic.dll. And whenever the program next time calls the enum process module, it will always get this path, traffic.dll. not the C user, app data, roaming, zoom, bin, traffic data. It will never get this part. It will always get the part that we tampered. So in this case, we confirm all the in here. We whenever it is the Windows 32, sorry, C Windows traffic.dll, this will always return 0, and this will always return 0, and this will always return 1. And we are going to simply exit from this function. So this will bypass the uh, zoom. This will bypass the zoom anti-tampering library. So first, let's just go to the stealth ops, and what we do is, again, let's just open up the connection here, and here we are going to call the zoom, right? So I think the traffic DLL is still there in the zoom. Yeah, this is the normal side loading without any bypass. So let's just open up the zoom, and we have the connection here. Now what we do is we will just open up the WinDebug, and let's just attach to that process. So let's just attach to the zoom, and what we do is we will also traverse to the pave data. So what we can okay, let's just see here. So this is the pave location here. Okay, let's just do one thing, just to tave, and this is the pave address. So this is the pave, and if you look at here, here is the loader, pave loader data, right? And here is the in-memory order module list. Just click here, and this is the forward link. So we need to just dump this as the loader data table entry, and we need to first for this one we need to subtract this with 8. It's because it is at the offset 8 here, so we need to subtract this by 8. And if you look at it, the first model is the DLL base, and here is the full path. So this is the full path that it is getting here from the enum process module. And for the teams, so let's just look now what we can do is we can simply copy this value and do again. So this is the next entry here, and again we can do the pave loader entry, and I think this time we do not need to subtract 8. Oh no, I think we need to subtract 8 because it is at the 8th offset. And here the second module is the anti-DLL. Now we need now the enum process module goes like this. It will go and identify each and every loaded data, each and every modules that is currently loaded in this particular process. And so this is from here, this is getting the full file name and calculating the file name length, and it is checking whether it is greater than or equal to that that zoom bin path length. So doing one by one, this is really tedious. So what we can do is we can simply use the command lm. So there is many way to do that, but this is really handy. So we will do lmf, and then we need to give the, so this is the traffic, and if you look at here, this is the path for the traffic DLL, and this path is always, so here what it calculates is, so let's say this is the path, right? So this is the traffic DLL, and this is the path. So the this is the, let's say this is 55 and this is 64, let's say. So the 55 is the 64 is always greater than the 55. That means the anti-tampering library will confirm that the traffic DLL is loaded from this particular DLL. So it will go and try to verify this DLL whether it is signed or not, right? So So now in the bypass, what we do is we will replace this DLL path. So if we go to the code, and here what we are doing is we are again going to the same thing. We are doing the same thing. We are traversing through the modules, and whenever we identify the traffic.dll, we are going to replace the buffer with the C Windows traffic.dll for the traffic.dll, and for the traffic.dll we are going to replace this with the traffic.dll, but the path is C Windows traffic.dll. Now let's just compile this. I think I have uncomment. Okay, I need to uncomment here. Now we will comment this with the bypass. Sorry, build this with the bypass, and then go to the, okay, it's not here in the release. Let's just copy this binary. Okay, I think copy paste does not work here. So let's just delete this file, and let's just drop this here, and just remember this location. This time the location is C users tilde ops app data roaming zoom bin traffic.dll, and we have the pop-up again in the zoom. So we have the pop-up here if you look at here. So now next time what we do is just terminate this, and we also need to delete these two DLL from here, and also we need to clear some caches. So let's just delete this. Okay, it's not there now. Okay, now we have here, this is the bypass one. So what we do is we are just going to open this file again from the ISO file. We are going to, okay, I think it's the bin, and just replace. And if you look at it, there is no traffic.dll currently. So let's just execute this file again. And here you can see it has dropped the traffic.dll and traffic.dll. Now let's just open the zoom. And if you look at here, this time we do not have any pop-up. So okay, let's just try one thing again. Let's just try to close this, and again open this and see. And then what we do is again, so we have already dropped the traffic.dll here. So let's just try to open the zoom, and if you look at here, we have the connection here, and also you can see there is no pop-up saying unknown publisher and all. So let's just wait for some second to confirm whether it is popped or not. And if you look at here, we can even go here and there, and it is not popping up the masses. And so what we do is just go to the WinDebug again, and again here we have the connection, right? So we will just go to the attached to the process and go to the zoom, and again here this time we will again look for the DLL path. So this time what we do is lmf m and then the traffic. So if you look at here, we have replaced the traffic.dll path. Now this time the traffic.dll is not C user still ops app data roaming zoom, but we replaced this path with these C windows and traffic.dll. So that's why we are not seeing any pop-up here, and it's working completely fine. And we have the cell here. So let's just open and confirm this, that's the same cell. And you can see it's the FV68 at 6E and it still tops. And this is the same one and it still tops. Okay, so this is how we were able to bypass the anti-tampering library of the Zoom. And finally, we are happy to reveal this technique publicly. And so here's the flow again. So first we are going to parse the loaded data table entry until we find the traffic.dll, and then we will just replace this path with the C Windows traffic.dll, uh, and next time whenever the zoom is executed or whenever the get module, the anti-tampering call, the enum process module, it will always get this path, not the C user app data roaming zoom bin traffic DLL path. So this like this we were able to bypass the zoom anti-tampering library. So we have been delivering such kind of techniques in the StiltOps training. So you can simply go and visit this link. You can simply go and search for the StiltOps training with the Cyber Warfare Lab, and you can go and look at the descriptions. You can go and look at the syllabus, and you can make your decisions after that. So thank you everyone for joining this webinar. So if you have any questions here. So if you have any questions, please drop some questions.
Thank you, John, for the wonderful session. And yeah, if anyone have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat bar. And after that as well, in case anyone have any issues, so feel free to mail us at support@cyberwarfare.live. So yeah, we will get it done. Also, if you like the stuff that we have taught today and the interesting this research that we have, so feel free to tag us and promote at social media platforms. So yeah, things will be there, and we will obviously be in our journey that we will be organizing such kind of interesting sessions, engaging sessions as well, based on the research that we are currently doing and the other stuff that we already have. So we will try to engage others as well. And yeah, I think that's all. Hope you enjoyed the whole flow, the whole technical details. And anyone have any questions, feel free to drop them in here. Uh, John, can you see the questions tab?
No, sir. I'm only able to see the chat tab, and there is no questions.
Oh, okay, okay. So actually, Derek is asking, is the C2 communication protected from NDR solutions?
Okay, it depends on what C2 that you are using. So if you are using, let's say, just the met DLL hijacking, the if the DLL is signed binary like a Zoom DLL, so it is a little bit stealthier. But if you are using like known payloads and all, it is definitely going to get detected.
Okay, thanks, John. So hope, Derek, your question is answered. So Derek asking one question: does DLL hijacking affect functionality of a legitimate application?
Sorry.
He is asking, does DLL hijacking affect the functionality of a legitimate application?
So like I mentioned in the video, so there is a technique called DLL proxying. So like not to break the any functionality of the application, DLL proxying is used. But also how you have created the payload in your DLL wrapper function, like it might affect the not the functionality, but it could break the application if it is not implemented properly.
Okay, so yeah, okay. So hope Derek, this is clear as well. And Matthew is asking that everything works very seamless. So will it also work with the help of any C2, or does it only work in the case of Netcat?
Yeah, actually it also works in case of other C2, but it depends on like the we need to go into further details and debug into the issues that will bring us with embedding with the other C2. But yeah, it will definitely work with the other C2, but we need a little bit more of debugging if something arises in case of implementing other C2.
Okay, great, great, great. Okay, so Rafi is asking that are there any other initial access methods that we can have, or this seems very good. So yeah, I can comment on that. That as of now, the method that is fish to persist is in wide use right now, because most of the organizations have various initial access security controls in place, like secure DNS, or various proxies, or various email filters, might be cloud-based email filters that they're using. That is, let's say, Office 365 for defenders, so something like that. So there are very well vetted kind of tools and these kind of things present in the market. So based on that, like, these sort of applications try to be, like, send all the traffic in legitimate fashion. And these kind of things, let's say, during our OSINT operations, we identified that the organization is using, let's say, Zoom, or let's say Microsoft for Teams, or let's say any other such kind of third party applications for meeting or for any other thing. So we can try to weaponize our initial access payloads based on that. And that works pretty much seamless, as it has been used by the recent red teams, as well as delivering your malware in other variety of ways. So that is also possible, but this seems to be a very best way of performing the things. And doing it professionally on the client side is will obviously add a star to the operators performing these kind of things. Once they have the initial access of any of the server, or any of the networks in the organization. So yeah, this basically looks well. Okay. Derek is asking, what is the prerequisite for the Stealth Ops training? So, Derek, the prerequisites are that you should be familiar with the command line interface, first thing, and the others are that other than CLI, you should be, kind of have a basic level understanding of programming languages like C, C++, and some sort of scripting languages like Python. And other than that, the Steel Tops training majorly focuses on the evasion stuff, where we teach about various interesting um initial access methods. And before that, we teach about the OPSEC safe red team infra development, where we develop the infrastructure, utilize that for the operation. And third is basically, the scripting or the coding part, where we build payloads as well as our own custom malwares, which have the capability to bypass or evade or circumvent such kind of security solutions, or either in the production environment, or we give them ways through which, or the approach through which this can be achieved. So this kind of things are available there. And yes, Derek, actually as of now we are offering this virtually on our own platform, and the next is scheduled at around May end or June first week or second week. So the date is not out currently, but as of now we are offering this at HITB Amsterdam. So feel free to have a look into it. If not, if let's say anyone enroll, they will find all the recorded videos, all the premium materials directly in the dashboard. If anyone willing to enroll in that, so they will find the things directly. So hope Derek, your question is answered in this case. Okay, so Gokul is asking, is it possible to bypass using the same methodology to bypass the kernel in Windows? So actually, Gokul, I think the question needs to be reframed. There has to be something more specific that you are asking. That kernel is basically a base that is required for the OS to run. So bypassing the kernel, actually, the question is not clear. Might be you need to reframe it. So yeah, that's the thing. Okay, if anyone have any other questions based on that. Okay, so Stan is asking, is it possible to have the same kind of technique in the MS Teams? Okay, so yeah, obviously there is, and what we have seen interestingly in this case is that only Zoom has the capability that it provides such kind of functionality, check functionality, that it checks whether the loaded assemblies or binaries are kind of signed or not by the publisher. If it is not, so John has shared the kind of screenshot where it basically checks if the loaded binary or that assembly is signed, digitally signed or not. And if it is not signed, so it just gives a prompt. But in the case of MS Teams, we have seen that it doesn't give us some kind of checks, whatever DLL, or if we are able to exploit a scenario where DLL hijacking is doable. So we don't see any of the checks in there. So yeah, things are pretty much straightforward in case of MS Teams. But yeah, in the Zoom, I think we have done. John has done a kind of legwork in this, and like come up with this kind of scenario, very interesting scenario, where we are able to not even have the exploit the scenario of DLL hijacking, but as well bypass the prompt that is visible to the end user. So during the initial access operations, this kind of thing has to be in place, whether it's a kind of a black box testing, or we are doing some kind of internal spear phishing, or whatever the scope of engagement of the red team is. But this I think this marks the answer of what you are trying to do. Derek is asking, are your content update to match latest defenses in place? So Derek, the thing is that obviously the vendors and all the things that are as of now in the market, so we are not teaching ways, not teaching exact the bypasses that the recent products that we can bypass them, but obviously the ways as well as the approach on how to move forward, so that like or the mindset that one can have to evade such kind of things. So obviously based on that, I think that doesn't follow the legal terms what the others are as of now offering. Like we cannot directly provide a bypass for any of the product, but obviously like there has been multiple ways that has been identified and exploited in the past. So yeah, we are teaching such kind of thing in there, and what all recent defenses that has implemented, and how to bypass in a very low level or in a very deep level kind of scenario. So that's what our content is majorly focused on. Yeah, because if we are kind of providing the original bypasses, so actually that is kind of illegal kind of stuff. So we are not doing that, but either on ways or approach to do that in organization or in production, where the malware developers or the operators basically perform these kind of tasks on day-to-day basis. So it's obviously a very dynamic field. Like what seems to be working today does not work tomorrow or day after tomorrow, because it's very dynamic. But yeah, we have tried and leveled up the game based on the scenarios we have seen, the assessments or the engagements that we have previously done. Yeah. Yeah, Naman, so recording will be provided after the webinar. It will be uploaded in our YouTube channel. So feel free to have them. And we will also post a link in our social media platform like LinkedIn or Twitter. So have a look into that as well. Yeah, thanks, Derek. I think this answers your question. Yeah, thank you. Matt. So Matt is asking if the application is killed, the reverse shell will be killed as well. Once I receive a reverse shell, would you advise for merging into a different process to maintain access? So Matt, the issue here is not about the application, but we are trying to find an application that basically, let's say, loads anything during the start. So let's say you are, as a red team operator, you are currently targeting any organization, and you somehow see that the organization is using an application like Zoom, which is automatically added in the startup directory. That means that whenever, let's say, the timings are at, let's say, the morning, the employee is logging in at around 10 a.m. and they are logging off at around 5 or 6 p.m. So the thing is that as soon as the machine is boot up, so these kind of applications are already started in the background. So let it be Teams or let it be Zoom or any other third party application, let's say any VPN softwares. So what one can do is whether they can place their payloads in that specific directory where we are able to leverage the scenario, where we can basically exploit or have a scenario of DLL hijacking. So whenever, let's say, in the morning at around 9 or 10 a.m., whenever the machine boots up, the application is automatically started in the background, and it basically loads all the payload, everything in memory, right? So we are trying to have a understanding of such kind of scenario if we are able to exploit that. So this is what we are referring to as fish to persist strategy. And yeah, so obviously right after that, there are a lot of ways where one can maintain persistence either on the task scheduler basis, or there are various other ways as well where they can have the credentials. So obviously once you have a shell access on a machine, you will obviously look for credential or maintaining your persistence access to that machine. So yeah, I think that answers your question, Matt. Yeah, Gokul. Based on your last question, I think you have reframed it a bit. So basically, Gokul, what you have said is like depend more on the rootkit kind of scenario where we are able to reach the kernel level and have our main malicious code or kind of malicious program run into that level. So that is also possible. Rootkits and all the things are there in the market. So you can have a look into the detection part as well if you are willing to go into that. But yeah, obviously that deep dives into much more detail based on what you are currently offering. Okay, so I think that will be all, for what you guys have asked. So thank you for the wonderful audience and for your time here. I think we are pretty much short on time. And whatever your other questions are, please email us at support. Just a second, let me drop the email so you guys can copy it out and ask us if there is anything. So yeah, I've just sent the email to all of you. So please have a look into that and let us know if there is anything or any questions you have regarding this particular topic or any of our offerings. And yeah, thank you, John, for presenting this interesting research that we had. And uh, yeah,
Yeah, thank you,
so
sir, for this opportunity.
yeah, Thank you, John. So actually, John, as of now, is not feeling well, but just for the webinar, he is up and like had his leg work previously. So yeah, great work, John. Thank you for
Yeah,
this.
yeah, thank you, sir.
Okay. So, okay, Hannah, I think I will be ending this webinar. So, John, I think you have the permission. Please end the webinar, and we will post this like webinar in the YouTube. Okay.
Okay, okay,
Thank
sir.
you.
I'm
Thank you.
this.